Happy New Year and welcome to Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk BYU, Big 12, college football, realignment, all that good stuff. And with me today to discuss BYU's offseason so far in terms of recruiting, coaching, and all the changes that we've seen is Adam. Thanks for joining me.
You bet. Happy to be here, Trevor. Excited.
Yeah, thank you. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, Adam and I just did another video that you'll see up going through the bowl season and doing kind of a recap and comparing our picks and some of the great matchups that we saw. So be sure to go check that video out as well. And so, Adam, here we are in the offseason. BYU did not make a bowl game as in its first season in the Big 12, which is okay. Not great, but okay. But what I'm really interested in now is, as everyone is what is BYU doing in the offseason to get better for its second year in the Big 12?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Trevor, I'm not particularly optimistic at this point at the beginning of January. BYU had some specific needs. Number one is offensive line, and what are we going to do with our offensive line coach? And I feel like BYU was about to reel in the big fish, bring in Jeff Grimes back in. That didn't happen. And so, we went with what seems to be plan B or plan C from Georgia Southern, somebody who's got a decent resume, but to me, not a big splash hire. I'm certainly way more uneducated than others in this field. So I'm looking at this purely from a fan standpoint. I'm saying, what, have you built great offensive lines before? Well, Utah State, Georgia Southern, I don't know. I don't know. Those don't sound like great offensive lines to me. Now, I'm not I'm not employed in the college football world, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But as a fan, I just think, I don't know if that's enough to take our offensive line to the next level. On top of that, we're not bringing in a lot of transfers to our offensive line. That's maybe okay. I think we had the talent there. It seemed like we had the talent. We made big splashes with our offensive line last year, and they just really underperformed. So maybe it was a coaching problem, and we don't need more talent there. But offensive line to me is still a huge concern. In addition to that, quarterback, I wasn't super impressed with Jake Retzloff.
Well, wait, before we get to quarterback, I want to hit on the O-line with you. So,
please.
Yeah, when that announcement came out, or not announcement, but when that started going around, I first saw signs of that on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, of course, we all thought that, like, oh, it'd be cool to get Grimes back, but I in no way thought that was anything even in the realm of possibility. So the fact that they were even not only in conversation, but it sounds like getting pretty close to figuring out, and so this is leaving, then coming back and either reporting to or sharing some, being on an even playing field with somebody that used to report to you, and having less responsibility like that.
Well, he would have been assistant head coach, I'm sure. Just sort of like the Ed Lamb role was previously. They would have carved something out for him. It would have been awkward in some sense, but the fact that he wanted to come back, because I agree, it wasn't this that there was a rumor they were talking. It sounded like they were in contract negotiations, and then Kansas whisked him away as he made the right decision to go be an OC at Kansas.
Yeah, in no way do I blame him at all. He did the right thing. I would have thought he was crazy if he would have turned down Kansas for,
Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, obviously that's the big splash hire you want back. I love Jeff Grimes, and love what he did for our offensive line, and so it's tough when you can't get someone of that caliber. But
yeah, and
you're
go ahead.
Well, I mean, you got to be self-aware. We're BYU, right? We're not Alabama. We're not LSU, and so you got to grab that up and comer who's going to do that. And I almost want to bring in the Jeff Grimes mentee, right? Who studied under him and can bring in that, or someone who studied under a great offensive line coach. And maybe our guy has. Again, but it's just hard to say. I'd rather get that up and comer who's a GA at one of these great schools, and can bring that type of culture, that type of potential to BYU. That's who I'd like to see.
A bigger swing.
Yeah.
But so I remember going back to when Grimes was first hired, and we talked about it just offline, and we are just like, I don't know anything about him. He's got what looks like impressive resume. Either he does really well and he's out of here in 2 years, or he doesn't, and whatever. And he did really well, and he stuck around for 3 years, and it was fantastic. And
Yeah.
I would have loved to have had him back. Yeah. So, but this other hire, and sometimes just having a change of voice can be enough, especially because you have the talent. So if it's just a new voice coming in and just kind of going back to the basics, do you listen to Locked On Cougars?
A little bit, yeah.
So you had on I almost said Barrington. That was last year.
Connor Pay this year.
Connor Pay, and he sounded really excited. Which of course he's going to, but he's also not one to hold punches. So he sounded genuinely excited. Just somebody that what they kept talking about was holding people accountable. And so maybe if that's really what they lacked, and it wasn't a scheme or it wasn't talent, it was just getting people to really buy in, or I don't know what they mean entirely by that. We wouldn't unless we were there. So. I'm not completely out on, but yeah, I mean, his resume is all right. He's had some good stops, Wisconsin, but then when you realize that's all because he was Gary Anderson's guy, then it's a little bit less meaningful.
Yeah.
It's, okay, he was just Anderson's dude. And so it's a kind of also a comfort hire, a safety pick for Satake, someone he knows he can work with, but maybe, that makes sense in a lot of ways too.
Yep, it could.
So anyway, we'll see. But I did see somewhere, and I can't remember where it was on Twitter, but it was quoted from somebody. It might have been Ben Criddle or something, but it was from a show or something. But somebody was touting Caleb Etienne, and I was like, oh, if we're at that point where that's what I mean. They're just saying, he's got it all. We're going to see him put it all together. And I was like, that's really what we're staking our hopes on for the success of BYU football going forward. I'm not. So.
I worry because I feel like we have some skill positions. I love our receivers. Our running backs, Miles Davis came back, which I was super excited about. I really like him.
Actually, let me pull that up, and we'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
Let's go through. So this is just on Deseret News and just overview of who's staying and going. And it's actually been relatively quiet lately, which I've been.
It has. And one thing that coaches mentioned is they focused a lot of their time on keeping current players from going into the portal rather than fishing other players out of the portal, which I think is smart. And so I've been surprised at how few players, and I've been encouraged by how few players, even after a losing season, have gone into the portal. That to me speaks volumes about the culture of BYU and what the coaches are doing. So even though I don't think we made a big splash in who we've brought in from the transfer portal, and I don't think you can do that as easily when you're coming off a losing season, I'm really impressed with how they've retained players from getting into the portal, and we've lost a lot less than the past couple of years.
So retaining is not only people going into the portal, but people going to the NFL, and that's what I want to look at with these couple is Ben Bywater. Which I guess makes sense if he felt like his injury set him back in his draft stock, and I know all these guys have consultants or they get all sorts of opinions out there, but the fact that he felt like he needed to come back, it's terrible for him, that really stinks because he could be moving on with his life and making real money, but it's great for BYU if he can come back and put together that season and say, I've really got to show him what's up. And then Tyler Batty, for who knows what reason, he's just coming back. He's just dedicated to it, and you got to love that.
That was huge. Our D-line needed that so much because I'm not sure. I know we'll touch on this, but I don't know that our incoming recruits and transfers are going to do enough to make a huge impact on the D-line. Having him back is massive.
Yeah. And then Miles Davis coming back is great. I like him. He's definitely shown flashes. Plus, I love, when I'm watching a game, when I can share the GIF of the old lady from Billy Madison saying, if peeing your pants is cool, considering me Miles Davis. So I get to keep pulling that one out. But, he comes in flashes. He's going to be more of like your Deion Smith, a kind of player where you come in for, when you need a little bit of speed, maybe going around the edges. He's not obviously going to be, I think, either the one or two kind of primary load-bearing running backs for us.
Yeah, well, I think he will be number two in that right behind LJ Martin, and I think he'll carry a bigger load this next year. However, the reason I like Miles Davis, when you watch LJ Martin, he looks he has the feel, he has the moves of an NFL back. I mean, he's so impressive how he makes that first guy miss, drives his legs forward. Miles Davis is not that because he hasn't been a running back his whole life. But what I love about watching Miles Davis is he has home run potential every time he touches the ball, right? It's not quite Taysom Hill speed and power, right? That home run potential was electrifying. But Miles Davis has a taste of that where he's so fast and he wins the edge, he wins the angle on the sweep because guys don't expect him to be that fast, and it's so much fun to watch. And I think he's a great change of pace back compared to L.J. Martin. So I was really excited when he came back, and I think BYU really needs him to be that number 2 guy.
Yeah, and we'll get more into this when we look at who's incoming and holes and stuff. But so I don't want to get too much into this, but I love him there. I'm glad that he decided to come back. He went and tested the waters and decided it was better here. Either didn't have the offers or what, but I'm glad we were able to keep him. But yeah, I don't know. I still feel like BYU needs another guy there with LJ Martin, especially as an insurance, but I haven't heard anything on that so far.
No, I think they have Hinckley Rapati coming back from injury, but that depends. He's really blown out his knees. If he's still got it, I think he's a solid number 3. But if he doesn't, they got to go find someone.
Now, on the other side of this coin, we got who declared Ryan Rico. It's a bummer, but we knew it was coming, and I say good for him. Go get paid. Kingsley, that one was obvious. And Aiden Robbins, I was hoping, I didn't think it was likely, but I had a hope there for a minute that he might come back just because he didn't, he wasn't healthy and didn't really get a chance to showcase his skills all season long, and then really turned it on at the end and thought maybe he wants to come back and do it for a full season. But considering, the running back position and injuries and all that, he's probably doing the right thing for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great guy. Hope he does well.
Yeah, me too. Because that's the thing, especially when you get these guys that transfer to BYU, you want to see them succeed so other people can see that and say, okay, I can go there and, finish out my career and do well and get drafted or whatnot. And Isaac Rex, makes sense as well. Didn't really think it was likely he'd be coming back. Do you think he gets drafted? What's the talk on that?
I don't know. I think there's concern post-injury. I think pre-injury he gets drafted, but post-injury he just didn't do enough in those 2 seasons post-injury to say, yeah, I'm back. I'm completely healthy. I'm the player I used to be. A lot of the talk from the commentary during the games was, obviously he's not going to reach what he was before injury. So it just seems like that injury was too severe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he had to go. I think. Well, you could say, well, he could come back and have another season, try to showcase. I think if he's not like really going to ever be what he was before it, then go now while you're as young, while you're younger and have a chance to do something. So I'd like to see him go get paid as well. We'll see, what he's able to do there. Okay, so transferring from BYU, as you mentioned, they've been really focused on keeping people. And that was one thing I was surprised about is we haven't seen tons of names jump in. So let's to the portal. So let's take a look at who is there. First of all, Hobbs Nyberg. I was never really excited when he was out there to receive. Although I did feel confident that he had sure hands. Like he caught that ball every time. He just
never muffed the punt.
Very many yards afterwards.
Correct. Safe. Not electrifying, but safe.
So the fact that he's going elsewhere, I'm guessing that's one because he was still getting playing time. I wonder if that is one where they talked to him and said, going forward, we have other options. And then Quentin Rice, don't know who he is. McGuire Anderson, he'll be missed. Just kidding. I don't know who he is either. Let me know when you see any of these. This one was interesting because he was not even on the roster this year. Yeah. And that was kind of a surprise. Yeah. Do we know what happened with that? Or was that kind of could that have been like an honor?
I don't think it was anything like that. He was going to play running back. We were stacked at running back for the year. And it wasn't a great fit for him. I think he wants to be a quarterback.
Yeah. So
I think Dom Henry is that's a tough one just because he's really talented. That's not a guy who's going to come and set the world on fire this year, maybe. But by his senior year, that man would have been great. I think he just had a ton of potential. So tough to see him go. We're stacked at wide receiver right now. I get he wants to get out there and get some playing time. That's what the transfer portal's for. But I do think he's a real talent, Dom Henry.
Yeah, and that one's a bummer because you felt like we had real. That was one of the things we had depth at wide receiver, and obviously it takes a little bit of a hit. So you'd think going into a sophomore year, maybe he gets a little more playing time, and he's really laying the groundwork for our next wave of wide receivers. So yeah, that one does hit a little bit more, even though again he doesn't have stats recorded. You think down the road, that's one you'd like to have. Austin Riggs. Now, this is a weird one for me because he was good. He's playing time, and I don't really know what went on there. I always try to fill in. We don't know. His brother's coming in. It sounds like he may be filling in for his brother. Is that?
I think so.
Right? So is he just thinking, hey, if I go, then my brother can play? Or I have no idea.
It was an odd one. Yeah.
And then the Daly brothers, that was also odd. I kind of thought they might be a package deal, but they've found different landing places. So,
yeah, it was too bad. Too bad to lose those two.
That was weird with was it John Henry that kind of left in the middle of the season while getting playing time?
Yeah. Odd situation.
Yeah, so something obviously went on there, which is not great. But I think all in all, it's guys leaving that maybe aren't kind of buried in the depth chart and not getting a lot of playing time, and either the coaches told them or they just saw the writing on the wall and they're moving on to try to get more playing time, which I say good for them. It doesn't always work out for everybody, but all in all, not a huge hit in this group.
Yeah. I think that was good,
which is great.
Yep.
Okay, transferring in. So here we've got Mark Collins, which I hear good things about, and this is another guy coming from Weber State. So another Coach Hill guy who buys in. So I have all the confidence in the world if Hill wants
our Weber State cornerbacks from last year were really good. I mean, I'll take another Camden Garrett.
Yes, exactly. So I completely buy in. And even with 1 year of eligibility, it showed that worked out pretty well on the defensive.
Well, they know the system, right? I don't think it's going to work as well if they don't know the system, but they know the system, and that helps.
Yeah, valid point. Yeah, they played under it. And then another Weber State guy, and Jack Kelly. And, we certainly need as much help as we can get on defense, and another linebacker, 2 years of eligibility, which is great. One is fine, but if you can get a guy who's going to be around for a couple seasons, that's even better. And then Sam Vanderhaar, who's going to obviously fill in for Rico, and we'll see what he does. But I love the Aussies coming in, so that's great.
That's right.
And I know he was a Kiwi, not an Aussie, but one of our favorites. So
that's right.
Anyway, so we'll see. And he's got several years of eligibility, so that's great. So recruiting class. So I don't know how closely you followed all this when it came out, but what did you make of all the recruits coming in? It's hard to do because, especially not living in Utah and not following high school football, a lot of the stuff is just. I mean, for me, primarily what I do, I want to see the stars, but I also look at what other schools and programs are recruiting these guys that they then picked BYU over. And that to me is kind of a gauge for, how excited to be. That's really as basic as I am with a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I don't just eat up the recruiting trail. You kind of get an overview of their class coming in. Obviously, the defensive line was a huge focus for them, and I think we had a flip from Texas Tech, an interior lineman that flipped from Texas Tech. I thought that was one of the biggest gets of the recruitment season, because that's what you got to do to bolster your defensive line right away. So I think they helped their defensive line, which was good.
I think that was this one, right?
Yeah, I think so. And so if they can bolster their defensive line, and some of these freshman 4-star edge rushers they brought in can make an impact right away, that's huge, because they've got to have a D line that can do more than they did. So I think their D line is better coming in. I don't know that it's good enough to really dominate or be a force in the Big 12 yet, but certainly good to see that be a focus and to see them improve. And so outside of the D line, I think everybody, you get future QBs and you get people who can make an impact down the road, and you get some big names on there. But I don't know that there's somebody coming in that recruitment class that's going to make a big splash necessarily outside of a couple of those D linemen. Everybody else, you look at it and you think, hey, hopefully down the road, they're making an impact in a year or two or 3 or 4 years if they're going mission first.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing with mission. It's really hard to get too excited about some of these guys, but yeah, you think a lot of this is investment, and that's where the transfer portal is really more than not where you expect to see guys that are going to make a real impact. And then there's the guys coming in from community college. You hope can come in and help out more and be more ready than some of these other guys coming in from high school. Seeing Asiata getting a flip from Utah, having kind of the reverse for
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. I mean, I remember when just when it goes the other way. Like I remember when Samson Nakua going to Utah, that was such a bummer. I was like, oh man, I thought the Nakuas were BYU. Of course, they all ended up there. And speaking of which, we got the last of them coming in.
That's right.
So
excited about that.
Yeah, you gotta love that. And so yeah, there's some talent, but it is primarily. I was shocked because I would just kind of follow on social, throughout the day and just see all the guys. I just refresh and see who's coming in and who's announced, and it was just like defense,
yep,
defense, over and over. And so Coach Hill has been very active. I'm worried a little bit about having the turnover in coaching, if maybe that's impacted some of the ability to recruit transfers or whatnot. But I also wonder if they're biding their time because so many players were maybe on other teams that like, hey, we want to make sure we get the right guys.
The transfer portal process seems slower this year. It really does, which is not a bad thing, especially from the quarterback standpoint. I mean, I think as Ugalele just barely announced that he's going to FSU. There's some other big time quarterbacks out there that they're waiting for those shoes to drop, and then you see where the other quarterbacks go. Because I do think BYU is going to dabble in that. Maybe the offense clicks under Retzlaff, or maybe Ryder Burton comes along in spring ball and challenges him and gets a start. But I don't think the BYU has an impact QB on their schedule. And I don't think Roderick's offense is built for a game manager to come in and hand the ball off and do dink and dunk throws. It's just not how the scheme is built to be. And so if BYU doesn't have a high impact quarterback transfer in, or some leap in the development of Retzlaff or Ryder Burton, then I think they're going to struggle this year at the quarterback position. I think that's my other real big concern coming out of this. They shored up the D line. The secondary looks pretty good with some incoming cornerbacks. Your linebacking core looks great with Acera and Taggart, and now Bywater coming back. That's a really strong group of linebackers. There's some great potential on that D line. Your wide receiver group is great. You got a 4-star tight end in Jackson Bowers. Your running backs are solid. There's pieces and parts, but boy, without an O-line and a QB, where are we but going through the 2023 season all over again?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because that was, those were the issues, and I'm not completely out. I think everyone else is out on Retzlaff, and I understand it, and he may not be the next great QB for BYU, but I still have hope, and I'm not completely out on him, but I definitely would feel better with BYU bringing in another QB to at least create the competition in the locker room, and then if it ends up being Jake, then great. And if it ends up being somebody else, then fine too. I'm not super enthused. I'm sure you've heard the rumors about Bohannon.
I struggle with that one. I have heard those rumors as well, and boy, that's I would struggle with that one big time.
To play devil's advocate, and I'll say, I'm not super enthused by it, but it sounds like BYU is taking their time on this and maybe shopping around for other options. But he had that one season where he took Baylor to the Big 12 title, and that was in a Jeff Grimes system, which we essentially still run. So, there is
he did, but I think his completion percentage was very low. and they were a great rushing team. They were a great, I mean, phenomenal rushing team. Him included in that. I mean, it was most, if I remember right, most of their damage was in the ground, and he ended up getting replaced at the end of that year, um, even though he had taken them to the Big 12 title game. So it's true. He's had some success, but I really struggle thinking that he would come in and be a better option than Retzloff. Because I'm right along with you. I think Retzloff is okay. He showed flashes where he's got the ability, um, and our whole offense struggled last year, and it's not all on Retzloff. It really isn't. And so if we fix the O-line issues and we have a running game, could Retzloff be okay? He could. He could. Uh, he didn't wow me, but boy, our whole offense struggled, and I don't think it was all on Retzloff. So it's just hard to say as a, on the outside looking in. It, who knows what's going to make the difference? And maybe Retzloff is the guy, and they saw enough on film to say, yeah, he's good. But I just felt like he missed some open receivers. He clearly made some bad choices at times, and you want a little bit more from a JUCO quarterback, and he looked a little bit more like a freshman.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the turnovers were deadly, and sometimes the decision making wasn't there. I imagine the game was sped up a little bit from what he was used to, and it may be that he can never catch up with it. But I like to think, maybe it's another full season because he wasn't able. I think he was injured during the spring training and everything last time.
Yeah.
That maybe having those reps and then going through a full off season with the team healthy, maybe that's enough, and getting more consistency, maybe having better O line, all that could help. I don't know if O line will hopefully is better, but what about Ryder Burton? He came in as kind of a hotshot guy. I mean, is he ever going to play, or is he just always going to be backup? I mean, is he?
So I think Ryder Burton is, I think it's a season too soon to play him. If he's the guy coming out of spring ball or fall ball, I'm a little concerned that he beats out Jake Retzloff. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe, I think that says more to Retzloff's struggles than Burton's successes, because I think Ryder Burton has potential, but I think it's got to be the 2025 season for Ryder Burton is where he's got his eye on that. He's got a chance to come in. He's been in the system for a couple of years. He's got a chance to come out and win that job. He's the backup next year. That's the time frame for him. He's just raw. He came in as a 17-year-old, talks a big game. Coaches said they're impressed by him. Hopefully he can get there, but I feel like he's got a long way to go to get to where he's going to be a Big 12 dominant quarterback. But we'll see.
So, and I don't have any answers ahead of me. I didn't do my research on this ahead of time, but are there any other QBs that we know are either in the transfer portal or are expected to jump in the transfer portal that are out there that you think BYU has a chance to get, that you'd like to see?
So for me, no. I thought their best chance was Levitt from Michigan State.
Yes.
And I was shocked he went to Arizona State. I don't know what Arizona State is selling, but they are stacking quarterbacks that are never going to play. Jaden Rashad is great. He is the guy down there, and he's a freshman. And he could probably be a freshman next year with a medical redshirt. I don't think he played that much this year. But Jaden Rashad is the guy there for probably the next 2 years. It just seems so bizarre that Levitt would go there. BYU must have been not appealing at all to him, because to me it seemed like a great fit. Right? His brothers played at BYU. He's got a connection there. We need a guy like that. His skill set fits our system. When I saw him on available in the portal, I thought, that's the guy. We need that guy. And then he chooses Arizona State, and I'm like, what are they offering at Arizona State? Because we're not offering it, and Arizona State is just stacking quarterbacks.
Yeah, and one bad season, but I mean, is it this last season they're like, I don't want to go sit behind that O line? Or I mean, I would think that the track record,
I feel like it's something like that.
The last couple QBs would be enough to get people excited, but maybe it's not.
Well, and I think having Slovis transfer in and having the season he had is a huge, very unappealing for incoming transfer QBs, right? Because that was our first go at a transfer quarterback. Everybody else had grown up in the system. And so how did we treat our transfer quarterback? How successful was he? Could he learn the system quickly enough? That probably plays into it, but I don't know. I don't know. But after seeing him, after we missed on him, I don't know. I don't know that we're gonna find somebody who's gonna step in.
Yeah, it's such a a bummer of a situation. Well, hopefully there's something we can do. Otherwise, if it's Jake, I just really hope he can put it all together. I liked him, and I like those flashes, and I like the element, the added run game element that he
Yeah.
brought, and I think he added a real spark to the team late in the season. And granted, he also did some things that were super detrimental to the team, but I don't know if we would have been in those positions without him. So,
Yeah.
he's an interesting case, but. So, yeah, I mean, and then the last one was wide receiver. So, I mean, we're pretty much, I just want to hit on this quickly. I mean, pretty much intact. Although Keanu Hill is moving to tight end, which I thought was interesting, but I guess they say he struggles keeping the weight off, which I didn't know. So I
Yeah.
guess if that's the case, tight end makes sense where we could use some more depth. The other thing about him, because I always thought he looked kind of slight, but I guess, I'm wrong, but the one thing that I was always impressed was just the yards after catch, and like he would just carry guys on him after making the catch. So as a tight end, that makes sense. Maybe that's a place where he can excel because he certainly has some speed, so he can bring that speed element to it. I don't know if he'll be a blocker much, but definitely
He's always been a great downfield blocker as a wide receiver.
yeah,
It's different blocking as a tight end. I mean, you're hitting linemen and linebackers, not
bigger
defensive backs.
guys.
So and he looked very slight this year, and he was injured most of the year. He looked really big the year before. Just a force out there. So I love that move if he can put on the weight and get up there. I think it's awesome to have him at tight end, and I think we're stacked at wide receiver. If we're keeping Cody Epps, Lassiter. I'm trying to think who else we brought in.
Yeah,
Keelan
well,
Marion, who was great.
we
Chase
lost.
Roberts. I mean,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did lose one guy. What's his? Oh man, it's been too long since I've watched BYU play, but he was out of eligibility. Um, Wait, it was Lassiter. I thought he was out of eligibility.
oh, maybe Lassiter's out. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
Lassiter's out.
So
I thought he had another season left in him, but either way, I feel great about our wide receivers. I mean, we've got depth, we've got talent. If we can get a quarterback to get them the ball, they will be the strength of the team next year. If you throw in Jackson Bowers and Keanu Hill at tight end, man, we'll be set. So yeah, I'm not concerned at all about wide receiver at this point. Who knows what injuries come out of fall camp? I mean, we saw that with safety last year, and so if two or three of those guys go down to injury, I don't know. Uh, we got some depth there. JoJo Phillips is a huge target, huge catch radius. Had his first touchdown at the end of the year. Would love to see him develop a little bit more and get more playing time. So there's some depth there, but of all positions on the team so far, you got to feel best about wide receivers.
yeah, and maybe it was more of a symptom of the QB situation, but I just didn't see. I mean, they definitely had flashes, but there was not as much there. I thought that anybody was going to be able to throw it up there and get it to our receivers. That you and I could go out there and at least dump it off to some of these guys and make us look good. But obviously not me, but maybe you. But no, it's so, but again, I guess with the O-line struggles and stuff, that's probably more of it. And then also health issues, Epps and Hill and some of the others. So, yeah, but we,
Yeah,
we certainly do have depth. I hope these guys can get healthy and come back because that is a position that excites me.
yeah, for sure.
So anyway, well, good. So overall, you're coming out kind of tepid on this off season.
I am. I am. I love how well we've retained our guys, and I think that's a huge win. It's understated. People won't be talking about that very much. To me, that's a huge win. But I don't know that we addressed the offensive line and the quarterback the way we needed to really be successful in the Big 12 next year. So I'm holding my breath on those. I'm hoping they're better than they seem to me. But I have major concerns there that I don't think we've been able to address yet.
Yeah, and I'm holding out hope that maybe there's somebody out there floating around that the coaching staff is working on. But the fact that we haven't heard rumors or anything, and maybe they're out there and I haven't caught wind, but it seems a bit quiet on that front. And it's been the holidays and things that maybe people are spending time with family, and so it's slowed down as well. But I hope we catch something soon because you're right. I think those are right to be concerned about. But I'm really excited about the defense. And, with everybody talking about continuity, that was a big struggle for BYU this year and something that a lot of people blamed our performance on. You look at
Hmm.
Colorado and all the turnover they have. So if that's the case, then you have to, like you said, be very excited about the continuity that we have going into next year. And hopefully that pays dividends, that just being here and playing together and getting another season, that, maybe that's the answer. So
for sure. I hope.
All right. Well, awesome. Excited. I've been a little bit removed from all this during all the holidays, so it was fun to kind of dust that off and go through and look at where we're at. So really excited, and hopefully there's some more action there for BYU, and some of these young guys coming in can make a difference. But I'm either way. I'm just really excited for the new Big 12 action to start.
That'd be fun.
See BYU compete. So anyway.
Yep.
Thank you, Adam, for joining, and go Cougs.
Go Cougs.